Kevin, what Gilly and I have done, obviously you guys know each other, but I figured it'd be kind of cool to do a bit of an icebreaker. So we're gonna do a 6 question speed round. You got 60 seconds to get through these questions. All right. And if you do, Gilly's got a special prize for you, and we'll figure out what that is at the end.
Yay, more running.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. He is pretty mean. All right, you ready?
Yep.
Mince and cheese pie, pineapple lumps, or ice cream?
Ice cream.
Bronco,
Ooh.
bench press, or watt bike?
What bike?
Oh,
Who's scarier, Richie McCaw, Gilly, or Graham Henry?
Graham.
Ted. All day. Ted all day.
Ted.
He
Yeah.
is really scary. Ali or Tyson?
Oh man. Who would I hate to see the most in a dark alley? Tyson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Budgie smugglers or shorts?
Shorts, of course.
Oh, come on, Kevey.
Who would catch me dead in those things? Meditation, cold plunge, or yoga?
Um, Yoga.
Nice.
Oh,
Good. 3 seconds to spare.
there's only one surprise there, really, mate. I reckon.
Which one?
Yeah, and yoga. I thought you might have been a cold plunge man.
Gilly, if there's something that I'm so stoked I never have to do anymore, are these cold plunges like I just, yeah, I think if there was one thing that I can think back and is like, man, I don't miss those. It's cold plunges. Like, body could never handle. Probably my toes could never handle it. You
Mate,
know,
it's because you were such a lean, mean machine, mate. You know, you didn't like the cold. You had no body fat.
on my toes.
On your toes, yeah. Beautiful. Hey, so Kev, so it was good. People got to learn a little bit about you. You're scared of Ted. You like the ice cream. You like yoga. You don't want to see Tyson in the alley, and you love budgie smugglers. Good on you, mate. Hey, I'll kick off, Kev. I'll kick off. From our records, you're a pro for about 16 years. Does that sound about right?
Yep, yep, on the money.
So that's a long time to be at the top of the game, right? And not just playing professionally, but to be in the All Blacks for so long as well. That longevity piece, you know, what are some of your keys you reckon in being able to play for so long at the highest level? That you know some of the young athletes listening to this might be able to sort of learn from.
Oh, good question. I think I think the start is probably that love of the game and a love of a challenge. I just always used to love the especially as I was getting maybe closer to the back end, which is probably like the last sort of 8 years. I sort of love the challenge of after we won in 2011, being able to say, you know, can I do it again? Are we able to go? Are you able to try and do that for another 4 years? And even working towards it, all the different World Cups that we were lucky enough to be a part of. They're special moments, and I think they've always been really good drivers. Having these pinnacle moments to work towards. But I think probably what kept me going for such a long time is a love for the game. Love the challenge. I love the physicality about rugby. I love well, one of the things I know that you can't replicate is like in the gym. That sort of energy in the changing room, you can't replicate that anywhere else. And everyone, they're all willing to they're all willing, they all have that same drive. And I think that's a special thing about being in that space.
Nice, mate. Nice. And what about looking after your body, mate? Is there anything that you did or didn't do to look after your carcass?
I yeah, I always tried my best to do that. I think I was really lucky to have some really good people around me. You know, just when I wasn't sure about how I needed to do things physically, you were always there. And maybe it would be worth sharing with our audience today, like I was probably lucky, really lucky in my time that I had with you too, Gilly. Just not every trainer trusts a player to go and do their work, and because I live quite far away from HQ, Blues HQ, Auckland HQ, I suppose I had to earn that trust first. But you let me do my work from home, but I had to earn that first. So I think that's something that really it actually sort of frees up a bit more space on the head, because you don't have to worry about you're not worrying so much about having to travel here and there. I just knew if I was doing my job properly, then I could do more of this, bit more satellite, out where I was, which was great.
Right. Nice, mate. So earning a bit of trust and doing the hard work when no one else is looking.
Most definitely.
Yeah, beautiful.
And it always shows up right. And I always knew whether we're coming to see you or Kat or whoever it was. When you already know when the work's not been done.
Too right. Too right, mate. Nice. Thanks, Kevey.
Keven, what would you say? I mean, obviously you just given a really big one there. What would you say set you apart and helped you reach such an elite level, considering the level of competition there is in New Zealand? Because Gilly and I, we both work with a lot of players that are from New Zealand, and they're typically going to say, I want to play in the NPC, I want to get a Super Rugby contract, and some people are brave enough to say, I want to play for the All Blacks or the Black Ferns. So what do you think helped set you apart to get to that level?
Oh, I wouldn't say set apart, but I would say there's so many variables to how you get to, or how I got to where I was. I always say to a lot of our young people coming through the grades, like, just be prepared for no. This be prepared for no's, which is you don't always get selected, but it's going to be someone's opinion. But if you got an open mind to it, you just got to ask, what is it that I can work on, and try and get better at that. So I think there's a lot of variables to it. There's definitely that love. There's that being willing to put the work in to be there. I think being able to be adaptable. I think in my time as a professional, the game changed heaps. So yeah, just that growing piece is so important, and how you keep growing as a person, physically, mentally, and I think emotionally as well. I think that's what helps you stay there and stay relevant, I think. Yep.
I think that's important too, that you touched on the emotional piece, because I feel like when you get a big no, when you've been working so hard towards a goal, instead of letting it tear you down, you can kind of take that emotion on board and use it as fuel to work even harder.
Oh, I totally agree. In my career as well, it came a big change when my role changed, like coming off the bench. Like in my head, I was like, I want to be out there starting. And, having a chat to our coaches and them saying to me, Kev, the best you can do for us is coming off the bench. There's something special that you can do at that time of the game. And I was shaking my head like this, but the whole time was just going in one ear and out the other, because that's not what I wanted to hear. And I think what I saw on the field, and probably even for me physically, was everything started going backwards. There was just this knock-on effect that this is how I was feeling up here. And when I look back at it as well, I could sort of see it physically as well. So yeah, I remember it coming down to a test match where one of those errors that I made was really pivotal in losing a match. And there's probably one of those wake-up calls, or that moment that you go, hold on a sec. Firstly, I should be very privileged. I should be privileged to be in this position. And secondly, just be ready when it's your turn. When your time comes, 2 minutes, 40 minutes, or 70 minutes, or whatever, that you're ready to go. So there's just, yeah, I suppose I was lucky enough to play for such a long time that it gave me time to think about these things. Yeah.
Because when you think about it too, I mean, I'm not saying, like, please don't take me wrong, I'm not saying you're old or anything, but like to go from 1999 through a 16-year career finishing with the 2015 like on such a big high, that is a really big time span. And like Gilly has also said too, like when he started out, how much things have changed over the course of his career working across multiple decades. So that's pretty cool. I don't think a lot of people could be able to say that.
Oh, very privileged. And like I said before, just it's the great people you're surrounded by. Yeah, I was just lucky to be around some amazing people on and off the field. Yep.
Absolutely. How important would you say strength and conditioning was for your game specifically?
Oh, huge. Um, I think it's a piece that allows you to, especially when I think about what strength and conditioning looked like when I first started to where it finished to what it looked like when I finished. That's the difference in the game. Like people say to me, "Do you think the game's changed?" Game still looks the same. Like I spent some time with the All Blacks last year, and I could pretty much say I know how this game plays. You know how the game looks, but it's done faster. There's less rest. The contacts so much. They look so much bigger. Um, so that's the part that I think is really important as well to being able to stay relevant as the game keeps going forward. Yep. I
Kevey,
don't know
that's
I don't know what you think, Gilly, but yeah, that's what I think.
oh no, it's no, you're bang on, mate. Like I think the athletes have had to become bigger, faster, stronger because the game's quicker and the impacts are bigger. So yeah, there's definitely been an evolution over the last 20 years, and I mean you were part of that evolution before you retired. You know, think about what you were doing in 2003 or four with the All Blacks versus 2015. Really different. Which leads me on to this one, Kevy. Like you're sort of there's quite a few of you from that 2015 World Cup winning team that have kicked on into continuing to be healthy and fit and almost continuing a lifestyle of being as athletic as you still can be. I mean, you own your own gym. You know, I've seen you squat. Your squat is like it's just got better and better. Those big thighs of yours are still huge. But there's a few of you, you know, like a Kieran Reid's running the streets and doing ultra marathons, and Richie's doing multi sports, and there's Conrad Smith's cycling through the Pyrenees in France. Like a lot of you are really kicking on with staying healthy and fit. And I suppose what I wanted to know was, what did you learn as an athlete in your career about training that sort of impacted you to who you are now um, as a middle-aged man?
The other end of the middle aged, right?
The young
Uh,
middle-aged.
I think possibly, and maybe this is just, this is the first thing that comes to mind is when you're part of these cool environments, you start learning to love training. It, I think in the beginning, we used to think about fitness, it was like, ah, crap, and it never gets any easier. But when you change the mindset around that, you you start loving that part of it, and I think that's the difference is it's just how your mindset changes around that. So I think about when I come out of the gym, if I'm lifting weights, how good it feels when I walk out of there, and it's the same feeling when you're pushing hard, and whether if it's boxing or on the rower or doing burpees or something, it's that same feeling you get when you finish. It's tough when you're going through it. So it's a hard slog and hard push, but when you walk out, you go, man, feel like I've accomplished something, or I feel
Nice.
this is the stuff that makes me feel happy.
Nice. You love the hurt, mate. You learn to love the hurt, don't you? And
Yeah.
and you know how good it is for whether it's for your rugby career or for your health and
Yep.
your ability to live a long, prosperous life. I think, yeah, having that mindset to enjoy the pain and knowing how good it is and how good you feel afterwards.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's cool.
And sometimes it's and just knowing too, like I think as I'm like, you know, further down, like middle-aged, it doesn't always have to be really hard. I think some of the best, you know, we talked about, you know, I would prefer yoga because I just know as I get older, I want hips that move, I want ankles that move, you know, shoulders that it can still reach above my head. And although it seems funny, you just go, well, everyone should be able to do that. Yeah, you can ask a lot of rugby players, can you put your hands above your head? So these things, I think, as we get older, and we still got to remember, you're a long time finished. There's a lot of life left. You have to do these things really well, or do these things. Got to keep moving. Yeah.
Nice, mate. Just on that, Kevy, is there anything when you look back? So you're really active at the moment. Is there anything that you're doing now that when you look back you would have liked to have been doing then? So yoga as an example, like did you do yoga when you were in the middle of your professional career?
Just in bits and pieces, a little bit of Pilates here and there, a bit of
Yeah,
yoga here and there. But you know, some of the guys that I used to look up to, like, you know, would always see Brad Thorne and stretching in the hallways. And probably wish I would have done a bit more of that. Or
beautiful.
if it's not flexibility, it's just making sure more of that mobility, so it's a bit more functional.
Nice. Like it.
To anyone listening to this too, and Kevin and Gilly, I know Gilly actually, it was cool. I built into, before we started working together, into a lot of my client programs, Yoga with Adrian. It's a free YouTube resource. She has great classes. And my wife and I have just started doing Pilates classes together, and people might laugh, but like a 10-minute class, it's 1 minute back to back to back, and I'm absolutely shattered. But it's like it's those little things that make such a big difference, and there's like free resources for people out there, and if you do those like extra 1%ers, I feel like it would make quite a big difference over the course of a career.
It's funny you say that too, Bucky, because definitions are hard. It's all different for different people. Like what might be hard for me, say aerobically, for someone else that might be easy. But then if asking them to touch their toes, bend over and touch your toes, might be something different. So all these different, such a different range to what's hard. So I think just being able to fill in those little gaps, they sort of, I don't know, they probably make you a better athlete. Yep.
Yep, absolutely. And it doesn't help either when your wife's beside you doing Pilates laughing at you as you're swearing at the instructor.
Yeah.
Yeah, dying. Um, so I've been excited to ask this question. So you played over the course of your career with a lot of great leaders, and of course you were one of them. What would you say in your mind makes a great leader? Who's someone that you want to follow, really take on in the words that they're saying, and work towards a collective goal with?
Um, yeah, you're right. I was really lucky to work alongside a lot of leaders and all of them different styles. Probably their just their consistency that's across messaging, across the way they prepare, across the way they train and play. I think that's really important. And probably what's more along the lines of values. I think that's really important because that's where you really, you know, good leaders have that trust, the people you can trust, and you'll know that they'll back up what they're talking about. And some of the leaders didn't talk much that I was around, but they still build trust. You know that they're worth their weight in gold. So yeah, it's probably the stuff that we don't see, like Gilly was talking about. They always prepared. They work hard. And I know it might sound a little bit like I'm just checking out the stuff that everyone already knows, but I'll probably just reaffirming that those are the things for me that really stand out for those leaders. Integrity, you trust them, and they're consistent.
Kevy, it's a good point because we always hear people talk about an important part of most leadership styles is actions. you know, like lead through your actions. And I remember, I think it was my first test away with the All Blacks, and we were going to South Africa, Cape Town to play, to play. And I remember Richie calling a players' meeting. We must have come off a bad performance or something. He kicked all the staff out, and he called a meeting. And anyway, we all sort of waited outside, didn't know what was going on. And then we got on the plane to go to South Africa, and I reckon for the first 5 days of the week, Richie didn't speak. And he'd just walk up and down the hallway and to and from the bus, and he wouldn't even say a word. He was so driven to win in Cape Town that year, and he just let his actions speak for himself. And I don't know if you remember that game. That was, I think it was 2008, maybe 2009. No, it must have been 2008. And we won the game. We hadn't won in Cape Town for a long time. But he was immense, you know, and it was for the whole week, and he said nothing. So actions are pretty important. Kevey, this is a little trick. This is a cool little question for you, mate. So we've got a time machine, right? And we can
Yep.
put you in. We can put you in it to go back and speak to young Kevey.
Yep.
What would you say to young Kevey? You know, like you what school did you go to in Auckland?
I went to Old Eder College in
Okay.
Mangere. Yes.
So we drop you off there, you know, I don't know, 30 years ago, and you get a chance to have a chat to yourself. What would you tell yourself around, I suppose, establishing yourself as a leader and one of the greats of All Blacks rugby? What would you tell yourself to help you get there?
Good question, Gilly. I think yeah, I'd if I sort of put the rugby hat aside, but I still think it works. It's still competitive. You know, it still works really well with rugby. Is that just being proud of who you are? I think that's really important as a person. There's this part around identity when you know yourself. Then there's all these barriers that come down. I sort of feel like when you're unsure of who that person is, you end up being someone you're not. And I think for me, in my time as a rugby player, when I understood who I was as a person, then a lot of things freed up. So be you. Know what it is that you're working towards. Be prepared to work hard for that.
Mate, I love it.
Yeah, and then just know, part of the journey is supposed to go up and down. That's life in general. But just be prepared for that. Yep, delayed gratitude, I think, is something I'm hearing a lot more of, that being in my conversations where you might not see the fruits of it now, but be prepared to put in the work now so that you can bear those fruits a little bit later on.
Mate, I just wrote that down for old Gilly, not for young Gilly. I just wrote that down for old Gilly, mate. It's there's some wisdom right there, Kev. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mate, family, faith, massively important in you and your life. How do you get the balance right, Kevey? Like, and let's that's now, or that's when you're a professional player. A lot of things, or a common topic among athletes is balance. And balance, we all know what that means, but what does it actually look like for you?
I think, in my career too, I was lucky enough to be surrounded by some really good coaches as well. I remember one of our coaches just saying, balance isn't about time, it's about where your focus and your attention is. You can't balance time. There's no way you can go 2 hours here, 2 hours here, 2 hours here, because that's not how it works. But understanding, if it is your 2 hours with your family, that's where your attention needs to be. It's not easy, because the biggest thing that works against us is distractions. Distractions always become a part of the problem. But balance, I think, from what I've been lucky enough to experience, is about where your attention is. Is it where it is what you're doing right now?
If you do mind if I ask who was that coach?
Could I ask you a question? Who do you think it was?
I feel like it was Steve.
Yes, it was.
Steve Henson. Yeah. No, he was big on that, wasn't he? Have your attention where your feet are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So balance is all about, it's not about time. So the more time you're out in the training field doesn't mean you're going to become better. It's how well and how present you are in that moment doing that drill. Be with your family, be with your friends. Yeah, there's some gems there, Kevy. Thank you for that.
It rings. I think it rings really well right across us as people. Like, probably one of the things that I sort of wanted to do well as a parent that was traveling, that was away. Like, you can't balance time. You can't make it look like the time with the family and traveling and being a professional rugby player is the same. But if we're able to put the attention in the right place, that's what balance looked like for me. Yep.
Nice. Beautiful.
That's powerful for me too. Like, I'm a relatively new dad, and we're definitely planning to have more little ones, and that's something that I've found I probably really needed to hear that today. I find sometimes it can be easy to sort of beat yourself up and go, "Oh, I'm not giving enough time here. I'm maybe not seeing Katie enough." But instead of worrying about the time, it's just being more present. I'm gonna really work on that.
On your
Katie,
Bucky.
Katie texted me and said that you needed to do that. So yeah, that's good. You've realised that.
Oh man. I don't blame her. But I'm taking her out for a really nice dinner this week, so we're that's balance, right?
Good on
Uh,
you, mate.
so it's really cool. Like, we talked about this earlier. You're running a really successful gym. And I wondered, while you were playing rugby, how important is it for you to both, like, do what you said, have your feet on the ground, enjoy what you're doing, be present in the moment, but also plan for life afterwards? Because the professional lifespan, right? Like, you know, I think if you're lucky, to be fair, you're gonna make it into your mid 30s if your body's really healthy, and beyond if you really take care of yourself. So it looks like you've done this very successfully. How would you say you set your life up like that?
Oh, yeah, I think. Oh, good question. Possibly, I do think that for our rugby players, they don't realize how talented they are. I think they possibly think they're just rugby players, but there's things we were able to experience in rugby. Uh, there's there's so many layers to who we are as people. But it's just a matter of finding what they're really passionate about. It's really hard, and I sort of wanted to be able to do something when I finished that would get me up out of bed. I think that makes I don't know if that makes sense to you. It probably makes sense to you guys, but if it doesn't get you out of bed, it's really hard to get up and do every day. So there's a part to that. And when I think of our gym as well, pretty much me and my wife, we started it because we wanted to make sure we could engage people. We'd been around teams and people our whole life, and it's pretty much a vehicle to help look after our community. So these are things they sort of aligned really well, and probably just being able to. Probably one of the things I'd think about is how do you align all these? How do you put the plan together of? We used to call it. Oh yeah, I don't know if you still call it that, Gilly, but jigsaw. Have those jigsaw meetings where you just there's all these different parts you need to put together if you're a professional rugby player, which is your physical, your game prep, your where you're sitting mentally. It's the same as if you're preparing for end of rugby. I think that the all the pieces that you need to make sure you know what is it you're looking for, and then sit down and start putting all these pieces together. And it's really good, I reckon, when you're doing this with other people. Like, I'd sit in the room there, Gilly would be there, Doc would be there, Pete, sorry, a physio would be there, coaches would be there, So you just get this really good view of how you can be better or how you can start putting the plan together. And I actually reckon that would be something I would recommend to our players looking to finish. Get some really important people around you, because that's what we do as rugby players. And then start putting that helps you put together, hopefully help together a good plan for you.
It sounds like that could also be something. I know you do. You're still very involved in rugby, and you're doing some public speaking, and you're guiding a lot of youth. And I mean, just throwing this out there, if you're not already doing this, that could be something really cool for you to take on, is to help guide people, through their career, but then also thinking about taking all those skills they've learned and not just seeing themselves as like a one-dimensional person. Think about all the skills you've learned in professional rugby. You might be really creative, you might be interested in business, whatever it may be. And then, while you're in sport, especially if you use the power of social media and your authentic self, you can really build something quite cool that can go, far beyond like your athletic career.
Lucky, one of the things I was doing while on like rugby trips and rugby tours is I illustrated children's books. So in my time as an All Black and as a Super Rugby player, I illustrated 10 children's books, and it was hard work because I think one of the things I know is that it's different. It's hard working to a timeline, because if your creative mind isn't on, sheep is it's hard work. It's just like there, rubbish, no rubbish. But it's actually you're building on a passion. So when it was time to go do rugby, I was like, yes, can't wait. So and just I think just being able to keep working away at these little passions or hobbies are probably things that probably will sway you a little bit more when you finish. Yeah.
Where I had no idea. Where could we pick up your books?
I actually did them for it was for Starship Hospital, which is a children's hospital in Auckland. So yeah, I was doing some ambassadorial work, and yeah, was able to work with some other artists, real artists. So it's quite hard putting my work up again next to theirs.
You were awesome, mate. They were amazing, those books. I'm still waiting for a signed couple of copies, but it's okay. You did it for a good cause, which is awesome.
Yes.
Kevey, we've had some questions from a few athletes. So this is a bit more specific about your role in a team. So, did you play any position before hooker? Were you a number 8?
I played 7.
7, Lucy.
And
Okay,
number 8.
nice.
Yeah, played number 8 and
Yeah.
number 7.
Cool. Obviously, as you stopped getting bigger and everyone else kept growing, you moved into the front row as a hooker. And that's a really specific skill set. So throwing the ball into the line out. And I suppose what some other hookers want to know is, how do you get better at throwing? Like, where do you practice within your week? And I know that would have changed through your career, but generally speaking, like how did you make sure that under pressure, fatigue, and obviously that adrenaline of being in battle, how did you practice to ensure that those throws are always on the mark?
I think there's a couple of pieces to that, Gilly. So I think they'll always hear repetition, repetition. But if you haven't got a checklist down in place, you could be just practicing. I don't know what you could be practicing,
The wrong way.
wrong way. So it's probably something that I learned from one of our Scrum gurus, and actually Mick the Kick, just people that are really good around building skill sets. So being able to sit down, write a checklist of a simple checklist, 3 or 4 things on what your setup looks like. What does it look like pre-throw? What does it look like when you finish your throw? So it might be as simple as that, but just being able to work through, once you've got your routine or you got your checklist down point, that's where you start adding in repetition.
Beautiful. So formulate a checklist of your technique,
Yep.
what your focus points are, and then repeat, repeat, repeat.
Yes. And line out throwing is different from kicking. So live repetitions are key because you can't just keep throwing to a door or a wall because that's not rugby. So I know
No.
Gilly always talks about it. How do you make it really specific? Then you've got to add in live throwing.
Yeah, so to a moving target, so basically to a jumper where possible, or to some hands. Yeah, love it. And just following on from that, Kevy, I mean, the reason we all love rugby so much, well, this is why I love it so much, is because every athlete on the park has different roles, you know. So if we stick on the hooker theme, you know, you need to be able to throw, catch and pass, tackle, carry with good feet, which you had one of the you still have the best feet of any hooker that's played for the All Blacks, in my opinion. Maul, scrum, and run. You got to do all of it, right?
Yes.
And everyone on the field has different sort of tweaks to that list of things. I suppose the key thing is what separates the good player from the great player. You know, we've all got to be able to catch and pass. We've all got to be able to not necessarily kick, but do something unique to our role. We've got to maul. We've got to run. We've got to tackle. We've got to evade. What separates the good from the great?
This is a good question, Gilly, because there's definitely a view from that I know from my time playing, but there's also a view that as I look back at the game, I think to myself, I wish I had done a bit more of this. So probably the view is from what I've experienced is core roles first. I think that's especially as a hooker, if you can't do your core role, then it's really hard to be a part of a high an elite team. Throw the ball and hook the ball. Tackle, run, like all the things that you talked about, they're core roles. So core roles are not just you as a hooker, but core roles I reckon is you as a rugby player.
Yep.
Um, but the other part to it, I think, is what sets you apart. And this is just me as I watch now. That just you still have to put you into your role. What is it that makes you a little bit different to him and him? So it's still within guidelines, but you know, there's something that makes you a little bit different to everyone else. And don't be afraid to don't lose that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, bang on, Kevy. Like I remember, you know, with your generation of players, a big focus was, um, don't stop being an expert or amazing at what got you here in the first place. You know, like if you're good at using your feet in close quarters, which you were, then don't just accept that you're pretty good at that. I won't practice it. You want to become an even bigger threat in an area you're really good. So for the young rugby players, you know, like don't just focus on what you're not good at. Focus on what you're really good at, as well as improving some things that could make you better. Often we're taught to focus on what we need to improve, when in actual fact, sometimes just getting better at what we're already good at is more than enough. So that's awesome. Thanks, Kevy.
I think you articulated that really well, and it's something Birdie would always say to me. You know, strengthen your strengths.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. So everyone listening out there, strengthen your strengths. It's massively important. Um, you know, because we all have different things we're good at. Don't just think it's good enough. Keep making it your weapon. Awesome. Thanks, Kevy.
Beautiful. So we have a few of our members were able to submit questions for you. So Gilly and I have gone through them and we've picked some of our favorites. And we're going to start out with Kodesh, who is currently playing his rugby in Australia. So, Keven, what are some practical applications you have used to consistently improve your game in rugby and in life?
Oh, good one.
That's a tough one, Kev.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, one of the things that we do really well in rugby and it's part of our rugby week is we play the game and then we spend a day reviewing that, or spend a couple of days reviewing that. I think in some of the spaces that I've worked in, a lot of businesses, a lot of people that they go back and reflect or review on what they've done. So if we're talking about how do you get better, it's really good if you can get that feedback straight away, or if you can get that feedback. So you're constantly looking at, this is what I've done, did this really well. These are a couple of things I can work on. These are probably a couple of things that I need to probably stop doing. Start, stop, go. They're probably a couple of things that are really easy, an easy thing to use. And you can do that. You can, if you really want to do that good, you can probably do that every couple of days, but it's probably a week, every week. I think you should see some really quick improvements. Yeah.
Nice, Kevy. Another one, mate. Another one here. I'm actually interested in this answer. Who is your toughest opponent you've played against?
And okay, so there's like different types of tough. So I think physically, when I always, and it's not someone that played in the same position, but in my time when I was playing, there was this big lock that played for the Box. His name was Bucky's Botha. He's a giant, and and we would just go at it in some games, and I'd throw my whole body at him at rucks and mauls, and he'd bounce me off, and he'd be laughing at me. So that was tough because I've had small man syndrome. I would it'd get to me up here. So probably he's someone that I thought was quite tough to play against. But then someone like Andrew Hall, that's a different type of tough. It's that sort of tough that, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but when you look at him, you go, "Oh, yep, it just looks wiry, if that's the right word." But he was the toughest. He's probably one of the toughest guys I ever came up against. Farmer's hands. So like, once he had his hands on the ball, wouldn't let it go. And I actually reckon he was pretty crazy athletic as well. I still remember him scoring a try from like halfway for the Canes from 50 meters out. So he was tough because probably because of his background and probably his upbringing as well, being a farmer from down south. Yeah.
Nice, mate. I wonder if you're going to say him because I know exactly what you're talking about. Like for those people who don't know who Andrew Hall was a hooker for the All Blacks, for the Hurricanes. Farmer, lives up in the Alps of the South Island. But like his training was shearing sheep. Like this was right up until the 2015 World Cup. I'd sit down with him to map out his plan for leading up to the World Cup, and there wasn't a gym in sight. He's like 300 kilometers from the nearest gym, and so he would just shear 200 sheep, and he wouldn't have to go for a run because that's hard enough. And all his training, him and Tony Woodcock, was based on the farm. So that functional strength, Kevy, that just ability, these hands, these huge, strong hands and arms and backs, pretty hard to compete against. That's awesome. Thanks.
Uncompromising too. Hey,
Yeah.
Gilly, just uncompromising. Like, you want to get anything less from them. So these guys, we already knew they weren't training in the gym, but they didn't look any different. What they put on the field, you wouldn't even know that.
That's right. Yeah. Beautiful.
What was your so this is a good question from Tally. He's one of the guys working with us playing pro in Japan. What would you say it was your mentality around staying consistent throughout your career? So you mentioned like we all have to be prepared for those ups and downs, big wins, big lows. How did you stay consistent throughout all that?
Can I just add a little bit to that too, Kevy? Just when you're thinking about how you're going to answer this, I think consistency, but also just dealing with setbacks like injury, like the mindset side of things. How did you navigate that yourself personally?
Yes, Gilly brings up a good point because like everyone has their Achilles heel, and mine were my calves. And you know how we talked about especially injuries, there it has a like a real it's not only physical, but there's like a big emotional side to that as well. Especially when you're on the sideline, you can't train with the team, you're seeing them playing hard, see them training hard, and you feel like I'm letting the team down because I'm not there, I'm not helping them. So there's this big emotional side to that as well. So um, understanding what are the things you can control. I think so, and we talk about this all the time. And I know, I'm sorry, everyone, if it's like, yeah, I heard this before, but I'm just reaffirming that these things for me, they're really important, which is what is it that you control? You control the way you turn up, you control the way you look after yourself, you control where your mind goes. So these things are really important, especially when it's going up and down. I don't have a control over who's selecting the team. So I shouldn't be putting energy in, or shouldn't be wasting energy into thinking about why aren't I being selected? Put the energy into how can I be better? How can I be that person? So probably that's the simplest way I can put that is control your controllables. What is it that you actually in control of?
Awesome. And that's like that's about putting your energy and your mind where your feet need to be. Right. So what you said earlier, Kevy. So don't go worrying about all the things you've got no control over. Just stay in the now. So do you love that, mate? It's awesome.
I think too, Gilly, like there's a lot of influence around you as well. Sometimes there's, I know for especially our young people, there's a lot of voices going, "Hey, you should be here. You should be doing this." I don't know why the coach didn't select you. Please, parents and supporters, just support them. You know, make sure that that talk in their ear is positive. It's not having them think twice about what they're doing. Just keep supporting them. Stay positive. Their time will come. If when it's time, it'll be time.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Nice, Kevy. Last one, Bucky. Last one, mate. Lucky last for you, Bucky.
All right, last one. So from Tony, who is a hooker, and he's on a plane to New Zealand in 2 weeks, which is really exciting. What are some key areas to work on in the off season and preseason as a hooker?
Ooh. Maybe if there was one thing I think's good for every rugby player, especially hookers, is I think it's pretty general. Obviously off season is a chance to move a little bit differently. I think that's right, Gilly. You get a chance to do things a little bit differently, so whether that be on a bike or on a kayak or something, it's good to staying active is really important, but trying out a few different things so that when you get back into pre-season, that your energy's at the right space or your mind's in the right space. So yeah, I think probably that's a big part of it. But I think one of the big things I think all rugby players should do a lot more of is just this. I know they do it, but that neck conditioning is really important for a hooker. I think it's really good as well for contacts as a rugby player, but also as a hooker as well. How you look after yourself, being able to make sure this is really stable is a really big part of what we do. So scrums are a big point of contact, but also tackling, being in a ruck, having your head down in a ruck. So I would put that out to all our rugby players as something big that they should put a little bit more time into, even though it's not a neck's not a sexy muscle, but it's something that'll protect you and look after you well.
Nice, Kevy. That's beautiful, mate. Love that.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join Gilly and myself. This has just been amazing. Before we go and say goodbye, where can people find you online on your social media and also connect with you at your gym if they'd like to come in for a workout?
Oh, cool. Yes. Our social handles are Fit60 Training on Instagram, and I'm Mr. Mia on Instagram as well. So that's if you're ever in Auckland, please pop on by. Love to see anyone come through. I just thought as well, just while I've got the floor, I'll just say a big thanks to Gilly as well. Thanks for always looking after us in my time as a professional, and you know, just being able to help put a plan together, and then how we went about executing that. Probably a big part of how I got to 2015, was able to do that for so long. So just a good opportunity to say thanks, Gilly, and thanks, Bucky, for making a bit of time for the change. So appreciate you guys.
Awesome, Kevy. Hey, thanks, champion. You're an absolute legend. We miss you, bro. We miss you, that's for sure. And love to family, eh? Love to family, and we'll see you in Auckland soon.
Likewise.
Cheers, Kevy.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.